I knew Volume would be one of my favorite games this year when I sunk 5 hours into a 20-minute demo. Iron Equal's latest is an atmospheric parkour adventure across a dystopian city tucked inside a time attack racing game. It's the kind of game where competitive times only come to those who block out all the noise, the window dressing, the suboptimal, and live in the tiny world of strict racing lines and checkpoints the racetracks laid out for them. That doesn't sound like much of an adventure. Volume agrees. Volume is my favorite kind of racing game, the kind that loves the world beyond its tracks just as much as it loves laboring over every gap and bend in them. The surroundings don't support the track lives within these impossible arrangements of brutalist structures that reach up towards the heavens and disappear into the fog below. I spent some time rehearsing my routes, chasing total movement mastery, but oh, come on. There's so much more to this world. Sights, stories, epiphanies that reveal themselves only to those who dare venture beyond the tracks, strange ones. The city sits somewhere in between unaccommodating and straight up unfinished. The more of it I visit, the more difficult it becomes to even call it a city. It's more like the idea of one, a place that tricks you into thinking people could reasonably live here. They can't. The further I get from the tracks, the more absurd the structures' placements, the blockier and more primitive their form, the more their texture, quality, and resolution drop. It feels like I've gotten a little too close to a matte painting in a movie. That's not quite it. Odd as the cities become, I can still awkwardly traverse it so long as I can adapt to certain new quirks. I can scale them until I'm so high up that the skybox can no longer maintain the illusion of a real space. Exploring the fringes of each track is an oddly familiar sensation, a uniquely video gamey one at that. I recognize it as the feeling of going out of bounds. Between the ages of 12 and 15, Friday afternoons were perhaps the most precious hours of my young life. I'd get home from school, take a shower, maybe, then hop on whatever the year's Call of Duty was with my friends. We'd cycle through all the multiplayer modes, sure, but what I really loved was playing hide and seek, looking for glitches, and whatever else our young minds could conjure up outside the established rule sets of the game. One such afternoon, a friend told us about this glitch in Spec Ops, the 2-player co-op mode from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, 2009, and he wanted to see it for himself. So we paired up and loaded into the mission, Hidden. He explained that to do the glitch, you had to first climb up onto these cars. From here, jump across the gap, bouncing on the wreckage to reach this shipping container. Now, hop down here, then jump through the hedge. Oh my god, it's real. Walk straight a little further, and an entire city will load in front of your eyes. This is the famous Modern Warfare 2007 mission, All Gillied Up. Hidden actually takes place in a jazzed up section of that mission, but you weren't supposed to be able to access the city half. Here you can retrace your virtual steps from 2 years ago, or if you were a kid playing your first ever console shooter and the only one you were allowed to play, like I was, exploring a secret city for the very first time. A brand new, old area with no enemies, no objectives, no time pressure, and with all the original textures and models, looking notably worse than the game I was supposed to be playing. Just a lifeless husk of a level, even more thematically on point than in the first game. Fun fact, these doors were actually closed in All Gillied Up. And apparently, you can also turn on these TVs. Those details don't matter at all to Hidden proper, but they mattered to me. I actually don't remember doing this part as a kid, and I feel like it's the kind of thing I would remember, but there's a way to continue beyond the city. That was actually a very pleasant surprise for me when I was getting this footage earlier. Here's where Zakhaev was when you sniped his arm off from up in the building.
Keep firing.
The further out you go, the more the reality of the game world starts to fall apart until you eventually just fall off the map. The cleaned up visuals of 2009's Hidden, the aging look of 2007's All Gillied Up, and now the nonsensical structures and stretched out textures of this. You were never meant to see any of it up close in Modern Warfare. You were never meant to see it at all in Modern Warfare 2. For a kid, just getting to see any of this was like getting to visit Area 51. It's a true kid's fantasy. I felt free, an explorer in uncharted virtual lands. You could actually glitch out of bounds in All Gillied Up too, something I would learn years later when I finally played it. But if you really wanted to make it further out, you had to be content with surfing on the invisible collider under the map, as far as I knew anyway. I remember spending a long time trying to find a way up, but no dice. Hidden, at least, threw the out-of-bounders a bone. Still, I found myself wishing for a better angle here, wishing I could clear a big gap there, or climb this structure, or just jump a little higher. As freeing as these experiences were, they were always punctuated by these dead ends and the subtle disappointment that inevitably followed. Volume, at long last, fulfills that wish. Running, sliding, bouncing, vaulting, wall climbing, wall running, all the movement abilities you'd want, with none of the invisible walls you wouldn't. It was at this moment, when I climbed this tower in the very first level of Volume and peered down at the shapes below, that I knew this was going to be a special game. Racing, chasing record times across meticulously curated tracks where every platform is tuned for the momentum-based movement abilities of your character, Robert, is, without a doubt, core to the experience Volume wants to nurture. The emphasis on, and relative rigidity, of the race is essential. It has to be to make breaking its boundaries that much more meaningful. The game takes place in the dystopian capital of Afro-Eurasia, where the population lives under the thumb of the Ministry. Robert is on a mission to restore his family's revoked ration tickets, but bureaucracy turns the simple task into an odyssey. So the game's Steam page reads. Volume answers the question, what if Orwell and Kafka made a racing game? And what if, instead of words, they used parkour? Robert, in a sense, frees himself from the city and the systems shaping it through parkour. Very Mirror's Edge, or rather, very BABBDI. The themes implied in the game's paratext don't manifest in-game through cutscenes or an abundance of dialogue. In fact, I also don't remember hearing anything about Robert's ration ticket problem, or his family, or his name. Instead, they resonate throughout the confused, impossible pathways of the city. Traversing the tracks becomes an abstraction of this Sisyphean task Robert and you have undertaken. The city is a monument to some unseen superpower's lust for control and endless growth, not a place for communities to thrive. Its citizens are sacrificed so that the city can continue expanding outwards and upwards. Everyone's either wasting away in the factory or holed up in whatever habitable nooks are left. Any objections are buried by concrete, any suffering happens out of sight. To loosen the ministry's hold over Robert and sample the freedom I felt as a 12-year-old boy, I had to decenter Volume, the time attack racing game, and embrace Volume, the self-directed exploration game the former lives inside of. In response to this, the game showered me with rewards, but maybe not the kinds you'd expect. Much to the ministry's dismay, Volume lets you peek behind the curtains and expose the artifice. There's a beauty in the loose planks and protruding nails you find out there holding these levels together. Jarringly low-res textures, objects clipping into each other, buildings missing colliders, lacking the detail of their neighbors, all become a source of comfort. They say, this here are the fingerprints of artists. These are the edges they've left rough, the seams of the city they've left visible, the unfinished content lost to time. Character-rich spaces not yet dulled by heavy polishing. And this is where the citizens of the capital call home. You could, in theory, play through the entire main campaign without talking to a single other person, outside of those representing the ministry, of course. Slow down and tour the not-so-pristine world beyond the Golden Path, and you'll find flickers of life, faint as they are, dotted all around the city. Inside the structures that allow them in and around the fakes that don't, folks sit around counting the days until work destroys their bodies or food runs out. The conditions are dire. Each residence is closer to a solitary prison cell than a home. To Robert, though, this bit of warmth, in the most unlikely of spaces, is necessary fuel for the spirit. Each interaction strengthens his connection to the world the ministry hides in the background, as it does my own relationship with the game. All of these, the short conversations, the secret rooms, the references, the rough edges, the collectibles that unlock cool B-side tracks, were like bespoke checkpoints along my own path of discovery. I've left footage of several of my favorites off the video to preserve a bit of that magic, but this one's too much fun not to share. Most of the script I actually wrote after I played the demo. The tower from the first level, for example, was a big motivating factor. But this one might just be my favorite video game moment of the year. The track Jungle 02 ends when the player enters this pipe. While you're bouncing and sliding towards it, it's hard not to notice the massive structure it's attached to. Over the next however many attempts, my eyes traced the roads jutting out of it, scanned the endless plain behind it. Eventually, I couldn't control my curiosity any longer. I ran past the pipe. And kept running along this seemingly endless stretch of land, pushing against the game's boundaries, testing to see how far it would let me go. You know how these games are. There's probably an invisible wall, some kill box, some... I arrived at the edge of the world and looked down. Oh my god, there's a tunnel. I hopped down into the tunnel and ran again, back in the direction I came. After 2 minutes in varying stages of darkness, chasing a faint light I wasn't even sure existed at times, I emerged from the tunnel and out onto one of the roads. Fences trapped me in from both sides, streetlights split the road in two, the mossy stone beneath my feet. Wow, those are pixels. I ran for so long and made it out so far that the streetlights just stopped. Soon I reached the end of the road. Again. So, I looked down, jumped, landed on a ledge, and ran in the direction I came from. Again. Eventually, the level did grace me with an out, and I took it before my curiosity could kill me. These windows were the only safe way off this wild ride, so I jumped through and into this classroom. I don't think that's how most people did that. I had to take a moment. I had made it to the edge of the map, then back again, then further out to the opposite edge of the map, and then back again, hitting a series of memorable checkpoints along the way, and ended my trip inside a room I didn't even know existed, and wouldn't have known had I not let my curiosity take the wheel. Volume is a racing game that reminds me I don't always have to race. I can and should take a break, get away from the rules of the track, the number chasing, the ministry's procedures. It channels some of my favorite gaming memories, the Mario Kart sessions spent shortcut hunting and appreciating details easily missed when you're chasing down the first place cart. The Call of Duty sessions where we invented our own rules, repurposed levels, and snuck out of the maps. Volume gets to the core of those silly experiences and shows us just how powerful they can be. In this dystopia, taking a break is an act of resistance, foregrounding wonder and adventure in act of self-empowerment. Defy the ministry, carve your own path at your own pace, and the game will cheer you on. Beyond the world of the tracks, there were no timers, no ghosts, no checkpoint systems telling me to go wherever I chose to go. Yet, every single time, without fail, Volume rewarded me with an unforgettable experience. Thanks for watching.